effectiveness and priority of the decision-making functions and conduct within the FSC in carrying out its statutory mandate. They should include examining the relationship between staff and the board in relation to the regulatory performance of the entity. The opposition's call comes against the background of the apparent inaction of the FSC in addressing issues at Stocks and Securities Limited (SSL) after its own damning report of 2017, which highlighted widespread breaches and irregularities at SSL. The opposition says the audit should have regards to the FSC's conduct with respect to other entities where regulatory actions have been taken. They added that it should also make recommendation about the appropriateness and competency of the FSC's past and present board of directors and the adequacy and appropriateness of the FSC's staff and technical expertise. And the opposition's call follows the resignation of Everton McFarlane, the executive director of the Financial Services Commission (FSC). His resignation will be effective January 1. He has been placed on leave today. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark made the announcement while speaking with journalists on Thursday.
I accepted the resignation of the Executive Director of the FSC, Mr. Everton McFarlane. The resignation will be effective on the 31st of January. Mr. McFarlane will go on leave. The Chief Prudential Officer of the Bank of Jamaica, who is responsible for prudential supervision of all deposit-taking institutions, will stay on an interim basis, seconded from the Bank of Jamaica.
The finance minister said that he intends to make further policy announcements on Monday. McFarlane's resignation comes as the FSC faces criticism over its regulatory oversight of companies in the financial services sector amidst the multi-billion-dollar fraud saga at Stocks and Securities Limited (SSL). Meanwhile, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says the probe into the massive fraud at SSL will seek to ascertain whether the stolen money was used to buy assets which can be recovered by the state. In a media release late Thursday night, Dr. Clark said that based on preliminary updates, a number of elderly investors are among those allegedly defrauded at SSL. Dr. Clark noted in a statement on Thursday that the probe by the Financial Investigations Division and the Fraud Squad will seek to identify whether assets have been acquired with the proceeds of this fraud. If and when such assets are identified, all legal steps will be taken to restrain these assets with the intention of full forfeiture. He gave the commitment that no stone will be left unturned in unearthing exactly how funds were allegedly stolen, who benefited from such theft, and who organized and collaborated in this. He also promised transparency in the investigations, but begged members of the public to exercise patience. He also stated that the directors and the managers of SSL must account for their stewardship. An attorney for Usain Bolt has written to the FSC accusing the regulatory body of playing a role in him losing over US $12 million in the recent discovery of the multi-billion-dollar fraud. Linton Gordon, Bolt's lawyer, confirmed that the letter was sent to the FSC alleging that the regulatory body is liable and that it failed to perform its duties in accordance with the Financial Services Commission Act. The lawyer said the FSC should bear responsibility to some extent, if not entirely, because all along they kept quiet and did not alert the public, including Mr. Bolt, to the fact that the company was not operating in a way compliant with the law. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is again appealing for motorists to take greater care on the nation's roads to preserve lives. He made a call while at a wake for Tamika Peart and her son Janali Wright on Olympic Way in St. Andrew, West Central constituency on Wednesday night.
Driving defensively, driving slow, and if you are riding a motorbike, riding with your helmet and just riding with caution. We as a people have to be far more careful on how we use our roads. We have lost Tamika and her 17-year-old son, and we are now joined by her 12-year-old son, the only survivor of the accident. And I can imagine how difficult it must be for him to make sense of what has happened.
40-year-old Peart and 17-year-old Wright died from injuries sustained after the vehicle they were traveling in crashed and overturned along the Mandela Highway last week. Peart's 12-year-old son, Kajani J. Sutherland, is the lone survivor of the crash, which occurred as the family traveled from Olympic Gardens to their Cedar Grove St. Catherine home. And the St. Andrew Central Police are looking for a man who was seen in a viral video kicking a woman while she laid helpless on the ground following an assault matter that the two are involved in at the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court in St. Andrew. In the 18-minute clip, the man, who the police say has several corporate area addresses, viciously assaulted the female. The incident reportedly took place on Wednesday about 1:30 p.m. a few meters away from the courtyard at the Half Tree Police Station. Head of the St. Andrew Central Police Division, Senior Superintendent Marlon Nesbitt, said he felt aggravated after watching the video and has made an urgent plea to the suspect to turn himself into the police. SSP Nesbitt said the police went to several places on Wednesday and Thursday in search of him. He added that the assault victim was taken to the Kingston Public Hospital and was treated after she had filed a report to the police. SSP Nesbitt disclosed that the incident was in relation to another assault matter they were involved in with the court. When they left the court, apparently the man was angry about the whole situation and began to assault the female, who is reportedly the father of her children. A teenager was shot and killed during a reported confrontation with the police in Denham Town, West Kingston on Wednesday. The deceased has been identified as 18-year-old Elvis Kep. The Corporate Communications Unit CCU of the Jamaica Constabulary Force confirmed the shooting. Reports are that the 18-year-old was among a group of men who opened fire at the police. The fire was returned, and he was discovered with gunshot wounds. He later died. The police recovered a 9mm Glock pistol containing 9 live rounds of ammunition. And for news further afield, the leader of Antigua's main opposition United Progressive Party (UPP), Harold Lovell, has announced his resignation from the post less than 24 hours after he failed to lead the party to victory in the general election. Lovell, a former finance minister, failed to win the City East seat for a third consecutive time as Information Minister Marfel Nicholson held on to the win by 6 votes. In a statement announced in his resignation, his attorney said that it comes effective on Friday. And for our international story, we join Jeffrey Tavares.
The United States has hit a debt ceiling of $31.4 trillion.
The United States, it's hit its borrowing cap of $31.4 trillion. The Treasury has now started taking extraordinary measures to prevent a debt default. This as the U.S. Congress heads towards a high-stakes clash between Democrats and the Republicans over raising the borrowing limit. Such extraordinary measures can help reduce the amount of outstanding debt subject to the limit, which is currently, as I mentioned, set at $31.4 trillion US dollars.
UK Defense Minister said we're not going anywhere to Vladimir Putin.
It was important to come here because while we're often focused on Ukraine, we shouldn't forget that countries like the countries in the Baltics are right on the front line of Russia, who may or may not seek to put pressure on those neighbours. And as you stand here in this hangar, you have Danish tanks, you have French military serving here, you have...
I am Jeffrey Tavares, Roots FM News.
And those were the stories making City News. Stand by for the weather report with Marcia Williams.
Good afternoon. This is the weather report, and I'm Marcia Williams. There's a high pressure system across Jamaica. The high pressure system is expected to generate mainly sunny weather across the region over the next few days. This afternoon will be mainly sunny. Tonight will become fair. The maximum temperature in Kingston today is 30 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow will be mainly sunny, and regionally there's a cold front across the Gulf of Mexico. And that was the weather report. This time back for Sports Link with Dudley Thompson.
It is now time for Sports Link on Roots and the 6.1 FM.
Hello dear sports fans, I'm Dudley Thompson and welcome to SportsLink. And we start with news on track and field. Sprint legend Usain Bolt is yet to receive any response from the management of the Stockton and Limited SSL regarding return of his missing funds. This according to his lawyer Linton Gordon, one of the attorneys representing Bolt. Bolt and almost 40 other clients of SSL have been fleeced of over millions of US dollars. The attorney outlined that in a letter that the company that up to October 31st this last year, Bolt had up to 12.2 million in his account. The amount just left with just over 12,000 US dollars. On track and field, the underrun GC Foster fleece is now on at GC Foster College. The meet only features 100 meters events. The meet manager Wayne Long says he's little disappointed that number of entrants for the meet. He says Sprint Fest was designed to give the coaches and large team chance to look at multiple athletes over the sprint event. On to news on football. Portuguese superstar Cristiano Ronaldo scored twice as his longtime rival Lionel Messi was once on the score sheet, and then it's an exhibition game which saw French champion Paris Saint-Germain defeating Riot All-Star 5-4 in the southern capital yesterday. Messi opened the scoring for PSG, but the was followed by Ronaldo's brace, the first from his spot as both superstars were taken off the game in the 1 hour mark. French star Kylian Mbappe was also on the score sheet while Neymar missed from the penalty spot. The occasion might have been the last time both superstars were sharing a pitch together. It was Ronaldo's first game since signing there for the Al Nassr to play in the Saudi Premier League, while Messi was playing his second game since leading Argentina to the World Cup in Qatar. Now in football, back to Premier League games on for tomorrow. Liverpool will take on Chelsea, Leicester will play Brighton, Southampton will take on Aston Villa, West Ham will play Everton, and Bournemouth will take on Nottingham Forest. And the lone game played with the standing so far, Arsenal leads with 47 points, followed by Man City on 42, Man United on 39, Newcastle 36, and Southampton is currently on 33. Now, one news on cricket. President of the Cricket West Indies, Chris Skerritt, will not seek re-election. The 60-year-old says he's standing by his 2-year limit, and pension that's secured in a second 2-year term will not be in his books come April 2021. From 2021 rather. Cricket West Indies annual general meeting is election set for this March. Skerritt says he will be staying out of the campaign until the candidate is known and then decide which candidate he will support. Skerritt became president of the CWI in 2019 when he unseated Jamaican Dave Cameron before he was given again as unopposed election along with vice president Dr. Kishore Shallow. Dr. Shallow is currently campaigning for the post of president, while Trinidad and Tobago's Bod Azim Barak is possibly running as his possible running mate. Alright, so on that note, we come now to the end of SportsLink for today.
On the 6.1 FM.
For a recap of our top stories, the opposition People's National Party PNP is calling on the Auditor General to conduct a special audit of the operations of the Financial Services Commission (FSC). Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says the probe into the massive fraud at investment firm SSL will seek to ascertain whether the stolen money was used to buy assets which can be recovered by the state. And the St. Andrews Central Police are looking for a man who was seen in a viral video kicking a woman while she laid helpless on the ground following an assault matter that the two are involved in at the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court in Halfway Tree. The news today was brought to you by our parent company, the Mustard Seed Communities, caring for the most vulnerable. Thanking our listeners on the 96.1 FM and persons tuning in via our website and also on our social media platforms. I'm Owen Brown.
I'm Marcia Williams.
And I'm Dudley Thompson.
On behalf of the entire team, have a wonderful afternoon.